Welcome back. Thanks for logging on and tuning in. If you haven't already, hit that like button and subscribe. That way you can keep coming back over and over to hang with us and our fantastic creative guests in the arts and entertainment world. I'm Allison Ingraham, and right now we are hanging in the studio with Mark Anthony, psychic medium lawyer. Welcome, Mark. Thanks for hanging with us.
Thanks, Allie. It's great to be here.
I'll just tell our guests a little bit about you, give them a little bit of background. Mark is the 4th generation psychic medium who communicates with spirits. He is also a successful attorney licensed to practice in Florida, Washington, D.C., and the United States Supreme Court. He is the best-selling author of Never Letting Go and Evidence of Eternity, and he appears nationwide on TV, radio, and is featured speakers at conferences, expos, universities, which include Brown, Columbia, Harvard, and Yale. So you're a pretty busy guy, Mark.
I definitely am. In fact, I'm on a summer tour, and my next stops will take me to Denver. I'll be doing a private a gallery reading event at the Arvada Center on July 29th, which is a Saturday, and then the following weekend, which will be like July 30th through August 3rd, I'm going to be one of the keynote speakers at IANS, the International Association of Near-Death Studies. And then in September, I'll be doing a whole tour of Arizona, starting at the Unity of Tucson on Tuesday, September 12th. And then I will be headed to Scottsdale for the Afterlife Symposium. And then, of course, there's a number of other things going on, which will all be posted on my website, evidenceofeternity.com.
Yes, which brings us to Evidence of Eternity. Let's start with your book, because you're promoting your new book. So in Evidence of Eternity, you write about growing up psychic. When did you first discover that you had a gift?
I was about, I'd say 3.5 to 4 years old, and I started having the quote-unquote invisible friends, and I'd talk to them, and they'd come to me. And what was really great about that, Allie, is that because both my parents also had these abilities, they understood what was going on. So they were very, very good about it with me. And I remember my mother saying, you know, Mark, it's okay, but just talk to your father and I about this, because other people won't understand. So I grew up in this household where seeing spirits was not unusual. And as a kid, I didn't think any big deal of it until I started school, and then I realized, well, not everyone's mom and dad were quite like mine. So.
Yeah. So how was that, the difference growing up with psychic parents? You probably didn't get away with too much.
No, it was rather problematic, particularly when I was a teenager, because you know how teenagers, you know, they're always up to something, and, you know, as a typical teenager, I was always up to something, not necessarily anything, you know, bad, but I'd come home and they'd be like, well, where were you? And I'd give them the, I was at, you know, so-and-so eating punch and cookies, and then they'd sort of go, I don't think so. And I think that every parent has some psychic connection with their children. It's just that mine were sort of to the 10th power.
Yeah, exactly. That third eye was...
it was beaming right on me.
So a psychic lawyer, do most people think that being a lawyer and a medium are polar difference there? And, you know, have you ever had occasion when your dual careers as an attorney and as a medium conflict with each other?
Well, both jobs focus on evidence. As an attorney, of course, evidence is important. Otherwise, you know, you're dead in the water in court if you can't back up your position with not only the law but also the facts. And as a psychic medium, I'm an evidential medium. So if I was doing a reading for you, for example, Allie, and your grandmother came through, I have to give you more than, oh, your grandmother loved you, okay? Because everybody's grandmother loved them pretty much. Evidential mediumship would be facts, data, things that I couldn't possibly know. I mean, yesterday I was doing a reading for somebody, and her father came through, and I was getting a lot of good information. I said, all of a sudden, I said, oh my God, he's holding up a bottle of Dr. Pepper. Well, the client that I was reading for almost lost her mind. She said, oh my God, my dad used to just like, he all but, shot up Dr. Pepper. I mean, this guy drank Dr. Pepper so much. And she said, when I was driving over for the appointment, I kept saying, Dad, if this guy's for real, say Dr. Pepper. And so that was great. It's really wonderful when things like that happen, because that's a piece of evidence. The second part of your question, it's like a lawyer. The second part of your question, do the jobs conflict? No, they actually work in harmony. Now, being a psychic medium certainly comes in handy in court, particularly in jury selection, because you're working with potential jurors and you want to see if there's any biases or prejudices, or and some people simply don't want to be on a jury, and even if you ask them, do you want to be here, they'll say yes when they mean no. So it's very important for that. And some people think, oh, you only take cases that you win, and it's you take cases because your job as an attorney is to represent your client zealously and make sure that his or her rights are protected.
Yes, I agree. Now, you're a defense attorney?
I've been a prosecutor, and I was a criminal defense attorney, also a personal injury litigation attorney with specialization in head injury. And it's due to my specialization in head injury and neurology, which then got me studying the human brain. And I write about that in, you can see Evidence of Eternity in the background, where I explain spirit communication based on science, theoretical physics, and human physiology. And, none of this is magic or hocus pocus, Allie. There is logical and scientific reason for all of it. And that's probably where I depart with a lot of my colleagues, because I'm an evidence and science-based medium. And, when I'm on talk shows like this and people ask me, well, how does this work? I can actually explain to you what the theory is and why we believe that spirit communication is reality.
Right. Well, I'm a believer, so. In Evidence of Eternity, one of your signature theories is referred to as grief, crime, grief.
Yes.
How is grief and crime related?
What I've found, Allie, in the thousands of people that I've represented and the thousands of people that I've conducted readings for as a psychic medium, is that a lot of times in the developmental stages of a person, there's a significant loss. It could be, like a child loses a sibling or a parent, grandparent, and it's not dealt with. I mean, a lot of us are from families where if there's a death, you'll sit down with your parents or the surviving parent and discuss it. Or you'll go to grief counseling, and you'll have a faith community. But a lot of people don't have that. And so what happens is it's avoided, it's denied, it's suppressed. And the fact of the matter is, Allie, you can't avoid, deny, or suppress grief. It's going to surface in other areas. So that grief can then lead a person to committing acts such as alcoholism, drug addiction, impulsive behavior, rage. In other words, the grief and the manifestation of that pain arises in other areas, which can then lead to inflicting grief on another person. Case in point, let's say that a child that comes from a broken family that doesn't talk about why grandpa died, and the young lady, she grows up, gets a license, becomes an alcoholic, gets behind the wheel of a car because drinking is how she took the edge off her grief, and then causes an accident and kills somebody else. Her grief led to crime, which has now inflicted grief.
Okay, that makes sense. Yes. So why did you write Evidence of Eternity?
What happened is I was on tour for my first book, Never Letting Go, which is a guide on the journey through grief. And people started asking me all types of questions about suicide, homicide, how grief is related. Also, how does this happen? Is reincarnation real? Do animals have souls? So I started compiling a list of the most poignant and most asked questions, and I addressed them in Evidence of Eternity. And I wanted to write a book that brought spirit communication out of the Victorian era. I created new terminology, like, for example, yes, it's referred to as mediumship, but what we're really doing is interdimensional communication, because we exist in a material world dimension, and the other side is a higher frequency. Now, this is not some far-fetched idea. Albert Einstein was talking about that there is no matter, there's only energy that vibrates at different frequencies, and more recently with the development of string theory, which is that there's not just one universe, but there are several multiverses, and the energy in those overlaps. So, long story short, I needed to bring mediumship away from that antiquated airy-fairy notion into the 21st century.
Very good. You received endorsements for Evidence of Eternity from near-death experience researchers. Can you explain what it's meant for near-death experience?
Near-death experience is a term coined by Dr. Raymond Moody back in the 1970s, and he's endorsed Evidence of Eternity. Such an honor to meet Dr. Moody and to sit down and talk. He's the nicest guy. I hope you've had the pleasure of interviewing him. He's just amazing. And what he found, and what other scientists and doctors have been seeing, is that people who die and their consciousness separates from the body, and we've heard about it going into the light and encountering loved ones and familiar people that have passed, and then coming back. In other words, dying, yet living to tell the tale. We've also Dr. Evan Alexander. He's going to be one of the speakers along with me at the International Association of Near-Death Studies annual conference in Denver coming up at the beginning of August. And so what happens with near-death experience is the scientific method has now been applied to this. And there's been studies conducted all over the world in several different countries. And what they're finding, I mean, even near-death experiences have been reported in Iran, India, China, North Korea. I mean, it's not just a Christian or a Buddhist or Hindu concept. This is global. And the similarities between them are just amazing. Long story short, when you die, like I said in my book, Never Letting Go, you take you with you.
That's good, yes, good. So the first chapter of Evidence of Eternity is titled Spiritual Situational Awareness. And
Yes.
You started it on September 11th. What do you mean by spiritual situational awareness, and why did you choose September 11th?
September 11th affected everybody, and it had a direct impact, no pun intended, on my family. One of my cousins was in an elevator in the tower when the second plane hit, and he survived and lived to tell the tale. And if it weren't for his intuitive sense, his spiritual situational awareness, he would have died. Because he right before... in other words, when the first plane hit, they were watching it from his office, and he kept hearing a voice that he recognized from a deceased grandfather of his to get out of there. And that voice guided him through this. Now, spiritual situational awareness is one of the new concepts that I've developed. Every police officer, Marine, soldier, airman, sailor, first responder that I know will tell you, trust your gut, trust your feelings, and also be aware. Situational awareness is like walking down a dark alley and being aware of everything around you so that nothing negative happens. Spiritual situational awareness is taking that to yet another dimension to where you're cognizant not only of the physical things around you, but the spiritual presence. And my cousin surviving the 9/11 attack largely in fact, entirely due to spiritual situational awareness is what prompted me to develop the term and to write the chapter.
That's awesome. That's beautiful. And thank God. So where can people find Evidence of Eternity and Never Letting Go? He's giving me the shut up card.
Both of these books are available at all fine bookstores like Barnes & Noble, all independent bookstores throughout the English-speaking world. And they're also available on Amazon.com. I understand Walmart.com too now.
Oh, right.
And they're also in several different languages, Polish, Slovak, Serbian. I understand Evidence of Eternity will be released shortly in French, and I think Romanian and Estonian and Lithuanian are so anywhere worldwide. And if people want to order it, they can also go to my website, evidenceofeternity.com, and it will provide you the hyperlinks to Amazon, Walmart, the publisher Llewellyn, so that people, Barnes & Noble, so you can purchase it online as well.
Very good. Well, thank you so much, Mark, for hanging with us. I'm going to close, and I'll be right back. Well, guys, it's been a blast. We've had so much fun hanging with Mark Anthony today. I'm Allison Ingraham, but before we go, we would like to thank our partners at Famous Faces and Funnies, Space Coast Comics, the Florida Book News, and Word Fire Press, and our great friends at Summon Unique Magazine. These are all the folks that share our videos all over the world, and we hope that you do too. Don't forget to hit that like button, leave a comment, and let us know what you think of today's show and our guest. You can also check our guest link below. Remember to subscribe, log in, and stay tuned to see who we're hanging with next. Thank you again, Mark. Wow.